Hey everyone, be sure to stick around through the end of the video for information on our Arrive Serpentor Arrive giveaway. And now back to our regularly scheduled programming. In Sabanur, when translated, it means the first one. Now, whether he truly was the first is up for debate, but this character was most certainly one of the first people on Earth to be born with the mutant X gene. Now, with this being thousands of years in the past, of course, being someone different, someone unlike anyone or anything people had ever seen, someone who would later be labeled a mutant, it was a certainty this character was born to stand out. Now, unfortunately, the form of standing out this character chose earned him many names, such as Kalima, Ancient Nemesis, or Apocalypse. Being gifted with many powers or abilities, control over the very molecules of his body, allowing practically any physical alteration needed, immortality to name a minor one, energy projection and absorption, it seems just about any mutant power needed. Does that make him a villain with plot armor? Apocalypse has been walking the Earth for thousands of years, sometimes going into a stasis mode, which allows him to jump through time in a restorative sleep. And regardless of the time that he is awake, he uses that time living up to his most common name, causing death, destruction, and chaos, one could say, attempting to cause an apocalypse. Sometimes even is going as far as recruiting mutants to serve as his guard while calling them his four horsemen. In an alternate storyline, Age of Apocalypse, we see an Earth and how it would look if Sabanur had attacked and taken control of the majority of the planet. This gave us many vastly different representations of many beloved characters across the Marvel and Mutant universe, some changes that influence and perhaps still influence characters' attributes and designs, even if the Age of Apocalypse was a short-lived period that was all but reset. Now, many had their first experience of this character in the X-Men animated series from the 90s, including this collector. His appearance left an unforgettable impression of the threat and intimidation the character exudes, and simply of the visual design that brought this larger-than-life ancient mutant to life. With that, it was no question that a great figure representation would be an immediate add to many collections. Hey everyone, my name is Jonathan, aka JK of JK Collects, and remember, I'll be posting a new video at least twice a week, if not more. And if that sounds of interest to you, please click that like button and subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. In this episode, we are taking a closer look at the Hasbro Marvel Legends 6-inch scale Marvel's Apocalypse. Hey everyone, welcome back, and here he is, the Marvel's Apocalypse, brand new Marvel Legends version from Hasbro. And the picture doesn't really do it justice as far as how big this guy is and how big this packaging is, but here is the Marvel Legends Mystique that we did a video on that came in the VHS style packaging, just to kind of see figure to figure how gigantic this is. But also, if that doesn't really sell it, packaging size wise, here is the Age of Apocalypse that came, and this is one of the larger packages that we have, and you can see this one is still package wise gigantic. It is approximately the size of a cereal box, but it is a carded figure. But okay, enough about the size. Let's bust into this thing. So on the back we've got a good old drawing, line art of good old Apocalypse there, and it looks like we have a rendering with a good old serial number right there. So a little bit of information. Look upon the future and tremble, he is Apocalypse. So there we go, world's most powerful mutant. I think we kind of touched on that a little bit in the intro, but there we go. Let's go ahead and get started. So just that same classic retro style packaging, looks like a comic book cover, looks like those old Toy Biz figures we used to get back in the day. I really appreciate this. It pulls on those nostalgia strings a little bit. Okay, and I did the normal with these blister packs. I have not taken it out, but I did go ahead and cut it free so that we didn't have too much dangerous blade action here on camera. Well, I say I cut it free, but I missed a spot right down here, so it's trying to pull my paper up a little bit, so it definitely takes it very quickly. Okay, that should do it. Damage is done, paper's torn a little bit, but that's okay. I'm not going to be too mad about it. So this seems like we've got two different trays inside of the one tray, so that is empty. Look at that artwork. That is just fantastic. What a behemoth. A monstrous, intimidating character. And there's our pamphlet. Can't go without that. Okay, so let's do this one tray at a time. Back here on the back, we've got those cables that run along Apocalypse. I'm assuming it's, you know, some of that celestial technology, some of the stuff that kind of helps keep him going. Just one of those things that adds to him and makes him just seem so much larger than life. They are a flexible plastic. We've got a blast effect, and you know I do love getting those. I like this deep red color that it's in, and it looks like we have a gun, a weapon, right? So he has the ability to alter his molecular construct, so he could easily turn his body into a weapon, right? We saw it many times. We saw him grow gigantic in size. We saw him turn arms into weapons, all kinds of stuff. So there's some tiny blast effects in here, so don't miss those little tiny little red things. All right, let's let those fall out. And also be careful when they come out, because that one just made a run for the floor. It did not make it, but it sure tried. All right, let's get this guy out of here. Oh, he is in that plastic, huh? All right, sorry for all that plastic crumpling, and I know it probably hurt some people's soul to see that happen, but you know, it kind of restored back a little bit, pretty close to what it was. So I do have empty trays. I'll cast those to the side, and let's go back to this piece here, right? So here is the one of the gray lines. So they are identical. So we'll look at one a little bit more closely, and as you can see, it is in that rubbery gray, kind of metallic looking plastic in some spots. It has like almost like a metallic luster in some areas, especially on the curves. And you can see the reflection coming off of it. It's very cool. Clearly it plugs into two different parts on its body. Of course, anything in these lines a little bit darker could have made them pop a little bit more, but as you can see, they already do, because they're separated very well in the mold, in the sculpt. So far so good. I am liking these parts and pieces. Here's one of the blast effects, the larger one of that translucent red. A little bit of a burst here, a little bit of a curl on that from where it was packaged, but we come to expect that with these, right? But we know that we can straighten them out fairly easily. No additional paint or any kind of coloring on that. It is just that red beam, which, you know, it's not always necessary. We saw some on some other characters where there's a little bit of paint in there to kind of give it some effect. And here's these tiny little ones, right? Gotta love those. Those are very cool. Two of those came with it, and they are also identical. That same translucent, deeper red color. All right, let's take a closer look at this literal hand cannon, we'll call it, right? So look at this thing. I mean, I don't want to see that pointed at me. Interesting that we have the count of blast effects that we have. So we have 4 different ports. I'm assuming maybe the small ones might fit in there. We'll test it. Logic says that it probably is how it works. And then the larger one in there, perhaps, but why did we not get 2? Why did we only get 1? Why not have a double effect for that? But then there is where it plugs into the arm socket. So we will check that out later by replacing one of the hands. The sculpt on it, very neat, right? Here we have where one of the lines should probably connect to it and run back to the body. I like the purple paint along with the orange on there. Very, very Apocalypse purple. But then the orange highlight is very neat. I will say that the orange probably could have used maybe one more coat. I don't know if you can see it, but some of the black is kind of showing through. A little difficult in the lights, but it's definitely not popping as much as one would think that it should or would. There we go. We can focus a little bit closer and block out some of that light. See, it's a little bit of black showing through, but one advantage of that, some of the black is showing through at some of these detail points, so it does kind of make them pop a little bit more. So it's kind of like it's still a bit of a win, even though the orange seems like it could have been a little bit more vibrant, but I do appreciate that the black shows, and it does give those highlights that I always ask for. So apparently I just can't be pleased. These little vents in here make sense for them to be the cast black plastic with no paint, but hey, you know what? How about some highlights, right? Okay, but the purple is painted very well, right? Very thick. There doesn't seem to be any black showing through. They seem to be painted very cleanly. It's kind of hard to tell just in these lines, and then with the orange being a little bit imperfect, but all in all, pretty cool little weapon. And speaking of hands, we've got 2 fist hands, and they are practically identical, just opposite fists. So let's take a closer look at one. All right, so we've got that typical Apocalypse hand. Look at that thing. I mean, even his hand is just like intimidating and creepy, right? So it's got the the horizontal lines here all the way across, looking like a, like it's ready to spread out and grow and be this massive hand at any time. And then you've got these things that almost follow, like the hand tendons running up through there and through the knuckles and everything. Just, it gives that idea of the ability to grow, but then also anatomy, right? Which kind of just makes it a little bit more creepy, in my opinion. Speaking of anatomy, let's take a look at this face. So we've got a second head, does he ever have a happy look on his face? So we have one that has a little bit more snarling open mouth that's on the body that we'll look at a little bit more closely. And this is just pre-open mouth snarl. Maybe he's not quite as mad, but he's getting there. He's just fuming. Excellent sculpt work on this thing. I mean, look at it. It definitely shows the emotion that they intended, right? It's a very Apocalypse face. And I mean, looking at the eyes, the red with the tiny little yellow pupils in there. I mean, the paint work, the shading around the eyes and around the face definitely adds a certain depth to it. Where if there was any kind of photorealism for a real life character that was Apocalypse that looked like this, I would say they definitely nailed it. The idea that's always drawn in the comics or was drawn in the animated series, this certainly brings that across. The blues, very well painted, or I will say very well not painted, because it is cast in blue plastic. So what I will say is there is a little bit of issue here on the edge, on the jawline of both sides, where some of the Apocalypse flesh tone didn't quite cover. The seam, the casting seam right there on both sides kind of shone through. But I mean, the detail and the quality of the face, I can give that a pass, because it's not that terrible and it's all the way around on the side. And more often than not, I'm going to be looking at the face of Apocalypse. Okay, now speaking of the face of Apocalypse, let's look at the man, creature, being himself. Look at this thing. Okay, so first and foremost, lots of cast plastic. And I am a fan of that, right? Because then you don't have a lot of paint to concern over. You don't have to worry about a lot of paint transfer. But let's take our usual closer look. So as I mentioned, here is the other face with the much more very open mouth, very grimaced look. And as far as like an open mouth goes, this is good, right? Because some of them just look a little awkward. But this is definitely, again, very Apocalypse, very aggressive, very angry. He's frustrated because somebody just won't acquiesce to his will. And he knows best, right? He was the first one. So there we go. Paint quality on this one, very similar, right? So around here on the jaw, I can already see some of the blue showing through. Not as bad over here, but you can definitely see where the seam just stands out and could easily allow some paint rub. Like if it was shoved into a plastic packaging and it wasn't properly fully cured, it could cause some issues. But the detail, the sculpt on the face, very well done. What I will say is on this, the application of the shading is a lot better done. If you see here, there's a lot of lines and dashes. It's almost like these were applied and intended to be, kind of smeared, like shading with a pencil or whatever. It was done on this, but they forgot to do it on this one, so it wasn't quite smudged or smeared out, right, to kind of make it look more shady. But that being said, sculpt is pretty good. The eyes are well painted. They are that pinkish red yet again with the yellow pupils in there. The teeth are individualized just by the way that they're sculpted, and I think they look fantastic. They don't stand out too much. And not really much of the gum travels up onto the teeth, not at least in an awkward look as far as any of the paint or anything like that. You can kind of see across the top teeth. It seems like there's a little bit of imperfection just in some shadows that are casting on it from the light. But all in all, pretty good. Let's check out the mobility of it, especially with this massive piece around it, side to side. Pretty impressive, right? So it is entirely, if I do it this way, it does impact, but side to side, it clears this collar piece, right? Up and down, that's definitely beyond the looking at the horizon. This is looking upwards. Down, I gotta say that is fantastic. It's fantastic because of how far it goes down, and fantastic just with that look, right? I mean, how many of you have like pulled your t-shirt up or your shirt up when you smell something bad and covering it up? That's what's going on right here. He is ready for that. So anyway, the down is very good, and the only thing that I would say is be careful pushing it too far down, because you could have paint of the face impact onto the collar here. Now, one big question that I have is, can he, not comfortably, no. You could probably force it to do a full exorcist rotation, but the way that it's, and that's what's going to happen, the way that it's catching on that collar, it's going to drag, and you're probably going to get some paint rub off on that, and nobody wants that. It's not worth that. So exorcist rotation is hindered by that gigantic collar. Okay, so speaking of gigantic features, let's see how these shoulders are. So up underneath, these pads are attached at the torso. Can you see that? There's like a little spot where it is attached there. So the shoulder, be it not on a butterfly joint, does move independently of the pad, which is good, because then it still is a flexible blue plastic. So it can move, but it's not dependent on the movement of the arm. So it's not going to impede that, right? So we've got good arm rotation there, but we also have the bicep tricep rotation. And with it being a more rounded deltoid, we've got excellent rotation and clearance all the way around that, even though there's clearly a lot of musculature sculpted into that. Let's check out this elbow. It is a single elbow. Oh, that is, you know, I'm going to hold. I was going to say that is unfortunate, but even if it was a double elbow, think about how much travel it was going to have to clear this gauntlet and to clear that, right? So, I mean, there's a bowling ball living in there, and that takes a lot for an arm and an elbow to clear. So it almost seems like a double elbow would have been pointless. It would have been great if there was a way to get flexibility, but thinking about clearing those two things when they would impact each other, I'm definitely going to give that one a pass, because I don't know how that still would have worked. No forearm rotation, no elbow rotation, but we do have full wrist rotation. And the angle of it is a forward and backward, where with it does impact this gauntlet sometimes in doing that. And now one question that I have here, since we're on that, is, okay, so the gauntlet stays, or does it come off? Maybe it comes off the other arm. Yeah, I don't want to, oh, there it goes. It just was on there a little snug. It is just a pressure fit piece. It just was on there a little snug. So there we go. Question answered, and then we can just pop this on. Seems like it's got clearance to just, yeah, with it being round, you can, if you can get it to snap in any direction, it will rotate on the peg that it's on. So that is very good to know. So that does pop in. It pops in very securely. It takes a little bit of, that's actually a pretty good bit of pull to get it to come out, because it does snap in just like a normal wrist. Speaking of, on the other arm, we have that same mobility with the wrist back and forward. A little bit of impact on this gauntlet here. The inward is definitely a lot better than the outward, because the out has a lot of the hand that does impact that. And here we have the ports for the cables to plug into. Mid-torso or lower the rib cage area. The back, as you can see, very good, right? That's a good arch to the back, and it's one that has the clicks into place, right? So it looks like we've got 3 positions, and the forward is also very good. That's a good it's a good hunch. You know, as he gets older, you just kind of start to hunch over. He's thousands of years old. It's going to happen. So there we go. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Excellent mobility on that. Waist rotation is a thing, but even though this is a flexible plastic, the belt, it does flex, but it also serves as a little bit of a hindrance, and then we get a little bit of a gap here, and there's some blue right there. So it's like some blue paint. So I'm very curious here. So there's blue. We've got blue right over here. It seems as though this is, and then we've got blue over here. It seems as though it was cast in purple, but then painted with the blue, but then there's a lot of blue that landed in different random places, so that was mildly confusing. But then we've got purple all over the place, and we have blue that doesn't travel around. So normally we would see the opposite, right, if it was painted that way, but all this random blue that got on this belt did make it a little bit of a curious thing, because you kind of see, let me get this hand out of here, so, but there's a lot of blue right there, and then you saw around on the back. So anyway, rotation is a thing, but we get a gap down there. The belt does kind of help cover some of it, but with that gap, you know, you decide what your tolerance level is on that appearance wise. Split pretty good, even though it doesn't do the good old pull down I always look for. That is a pretty good split, especially for such a gigantic being. Upper thigh rotation, we have a double knee, which is good. Oh man, that's good flexibility, right? For such a giant. He is ready to limber up. Even with this piece of the calf, the boot, getting in the way, I do appreciate the sculpting of the kneecap, right, being part of the boot. We don't seem to have, yeah, there's no calf rotation unless something is just absolutely stuck into place on both feet. We do have forward, backward, and ankle breaker. He can still crack those ankles wide open. No matter how old and powerful he is still susceptible to a skeleton, I guess. Okay, so there we go. Let's take a closer look and see about any of these paint apps. What I can see, like I said, a lot of cast plastic, a lot of cast purple, which is great to see. We have these gauntlets are a blue with some purple painted on them, and the purple is painted very cleanly, it seems, right? So even looking at it very closely on the screen, you have to look very, very closely, like at these edges, to see maybe where some of the blue didn't, or the purple didn't quite meet all the way to the edge. But all in all, the entire look of it is very well done, and that's both of them. They seem to both have that same quality from what I can tell. Here's where the purple traveled all the way to the edge, and this one almost made it, so it just seems like maybe the layout for the paint was a little bit excessive. I don't know, it's hard to say. But the blue painted on the purple here on the face, very well done, right? It's very clean. It keeps that same, it's actually almost like a little bit more flat than the cast plastic, which is good because it changes the texture. But the texture stays just about the same across all the blues, between the flexible plastic down here, these gauntlets. The only thing that seems a little bit different is the finish on the A itself. It seems a little bit glossier, but it is separate and in the middle from all the others, so you have to be really kind of looking for something that would be an issue. The blue actually very well done on the edges here coming down, especially when we look up here and the edges aren't quite as clean. But I will say with this edge, probably better, so we don't have to worry too much about paint rub. A little disappointed that this didn't travel all the way up, especially with some other figures that have been created that does have a design travel all the way up, because if you're posing and then you all suddenly have this wide open piece right there, yeah, it can kind of be a detractor. But yeah, and then the rest we're dealing with cast plastic, so we're not dealing with any paint apps. Very cool, and I just feel like I need to plug at least one of these in, right? So there we go. And then right into the arm, and they plug in very easily. So there we go. And hopefully I did it right. You know, maybe it goes the other way. Let's try this one the other way just to see how that looks. This is me just figuring it out on my own, which, yeah, you know what? I think this way is probably the better way, because as it comes around here, it needs to do that sharp curve, where these will have that play going outward. And it just seems like it allows, yeah, it's a lot cleaner of a attachment there. Yep, there we go. So there's our guy. There is Apocalypse. And we are going to be right back with some 360s. But first, we got to see how he stands on his own. There he goes. He did it just fine. Look at that. Let's move him back. We got the camera angle pretty high. So there he is, and we'll be right back with some 360s. And here he is, the Hasbro Marvel Legends Series Marvel's Apocalypse. Gigantic figure, fantastically made. It is huge. The packaging is huge. Everything is huge about it, and I'm loving it, right? A couple paint issues, but obviously posability and just the general design of this thing is fantastic. Being someone who grew up on that 90s X-Men animated series, and this being that look of Apocalypse I'm used to, absolutely a big fan. So check it out. If you are interested, if you were on the fence or you're thinking about it, I definitely do recommend this one. Not enough faults to say there was anything to deter from picking it up. So I hope you enjoy it, and thanks for checking us out. Well, that about does it. Thank you for checking us out and for joining us on this collecting journey, as always. Look for at least 2 new videos each week, if not more. And if you got something from today's episode and have not already done so, please subscribe and click that like button. It would really help us out, and it would truly mean a lot to me. And if you'd like to see some more videos, there are a couple of quick links on your screen right now for you to check out. But no matter what, thank you for taking the time. And remember, we are all in this world of collecting together. Let's look out for each other. Thanks. Hey everyone, remember we are currently running our Arrive Serpentor Arrive giveaway, where we are giving away 1 Hasbro G.I. Joe classified Serpentor with Air Chariot. Check out the description and click the link to complete the 3-question Google form. Each video during the giveaway period will have a secret keyword shared within the video. That keyword will be one of the answers on the form and is needed for an entry to win. You can enter multiple times, but only 1 entry per video. Most importantly of all, a special thank you to you for making it possible for us to already be able to start giving back.